It's Glock Day at West Coast Armory North this Wednesday, April 20th, all day. Check out our wide selection of Glock pistols, meet our Glock factory representatives, and enter our drawing to win a free Glock. Why Glock? They're safe, simple, and extremely reliable. They are the #1 choice of law enforcement, military, and competitive shooters worldwide. They are accurate, durable, and user-friendly. And last but not least, Glock manufactures a diverse lineup of pistols, allowing you to choose the features that best fit your intended use. And West Coast Armory North has several Glock armorers and certified expert sales staff to help you choose the perfect Glock pistol for your needs. We will even have a factory representative here from noon until 6, and he will be conducting free inspections and repairs on all Glock pistols. All Glock accessories will be on sale, and if you purchase a Glock pistol, you will receive a free gift. Check out all the details at westcoastarmorynorth.com or West Coast Armory North's Facebook page. West Coast Armory North has a best price guarantee on firearms, so you know you'll get the best price for your new Glock. See you Wednesday for Glock Day.
Thinking Tactically is a paid program. The information provided is not legal advice and should not be used in lieu of legal counsel. The views and opinions expressed by the hosts and their guests are not necessarily those of West Coast Armory North or this station.
Every day, we hear stories of innocent people who are the victims of violent crimes. Do you want to leave your personal defense up to someone else? Or take the initiative and be responsible and prepared to defend yourself and your family? If you answered yes, this is the show for you. Thinking Tactically, personal security for today's world. And now, here are your hosts, John Holshin and Kevin Smith.
Good morning and welcome to this week's edition of Thinking Tactically, Personal Security for Today's World. We've got a great list of topics for today. We're going to be talking about firearms lessons from the news. We're going to be talking about personal security while traveling. We're going to be discussing concealed carry, where you can take it when you're traveling and where you can't, and steps to take to make sure that you're following the rules. We're also going to be talking about safety and practical tips while flying. We're going to start with news. And John, what do you got for us this week?
Well, I pulled a couple of stories out that illustrate some points that I wanted to bring out. The first one is a mother shoots an intruder who enters through a window in her home at just after noon in the middle of the day. Basically, a mom and her infant are home. She hears a window break and looks in, and there's a guy who's just broken the window. She arms herself, returns to the doorway as he's climbing through. She challenges him, and he continues to come in. She fires a single shot and doesn't know whether she hits him or not. But sure enough, he shows up in a hospital nearby an hour or so later. So, here's a woman that, number one, had tools, when threatened, acted decisively, verbally challenged the guy, gave him the opportunity to flee. He didn't do so, so she used deadly force in a very appropriate way. Note that time of day I mentioned. It happened just afternoon at 12:10 p.m. The next one is also a burglary. This is here close by, Pierce County, Washington, that the home was broken into. It turned out that a teenage son was home from school, homesick with that flu bug that's going around, and he armed himself, hid in the next room, but verbally challenged the burglars that were in the house, told them that he was armed, and they fled. Again, mid-afternoon. The third one, and all these are from news this week, so all current stuff I didn't have to pick through. Similar type thing. In this case, a guy knocks on the door at 11 a.m., doesn't get any answer because the person that's home is busy and thinks, oh, it's just a salesman or something. I don't want to talk to him. And shortly thereafter, he breaks down the door and comes in. She arms herself, hides in the closet in her bedroom, and when he comes in, she fires a single shot, which strikes him. He again flees. There's another consistent theme here. Shooting a person, particularly with a handgun, unless you are very skilled or just get lucky, you're unlikely to hit somebody in a place that causes them to be instantly incapacitated. In many cases, these people run away, leaving the person that fired in self-defense wondering if they hit him or not. But again, this fella shows up in a local hospital with a gunshot wound and a story that doesn't make sense about an hour later.
It's amazing that those stories never make sense.
Exactly. And again, this was at 11 a.m., followed by another one. This one happens to be in California. It's very, very similar. I won't bother to go into all the details other than the person was home. In this case, the mom was home with 5 children, including a 5-month-old baby. when somebody breaks into the house in the middle of the day. The consistent theme here is, in many cases, people that are concerned with personal security and self-defense, they think about things that might happen, and they imagine them and imagine the things they might do to get themselves out of that situation. And that's excellent. That's absolutely what you want to do. You want to think in advance and have plans. But a lot of times our planning is based on unrealistic expectations, things that, whether we're influenced by things that we've seen in the media, TV, movies we've seen, that sort of thing. And people don't realize that the most common time of day for household burglary is actually mid-afternoon.
That's when my home was broken into about 3 years ago. We came home at 3 in the afternoon, and they hadn't been there more than probably 2 hours earlier, so it was somewhere between noon and 3 that they'd broken in, took all of our possessions out of our house that they did.
Absolutely. And that's, whether you're homesick, whether you're taking a day off, or whether, you're the house mom or house dad that's home during the day, you need to think about that and realize that just because it's not the middle of the night does not mean that, this is a safe time and I don't have to be concerned with this type of thing. That's why we encourage people keep their doors locked at all times. Think about personal security at all times, not just when you are in what you believe to be a dangerous place or in the middle of the night.
That's where things like security alarms, different things for when you're not home during the day are useful to try to deter that type of break-ins, because most break-ins don't occur at night. Like
Exactly.
you said, they're occurring in the middle of the afternoon when you're at work.
Absolutely.
And these kids or people that are breaking in either don't have a job, they're skipping school, they're doing whatever they're doing because they know you won't be there or hoping that you won't.
Sure.
So if you don't answer the door, they're assuming, that means that it's an empty house.
Absolutely. And, and those that are professionals, they are at work.
That is their job, is breaking into people's homes, and they're not good people. They aren't concerned with what that took you to buy those possessions or build the home that you have. They want whatever you have for whatever monetary reasons they have.
Absolutely. There was another news story recently that made that point. Subsequent to a burglary where the perpetrator was shot, some of the family members and friends of the burglar were interviewed. And it turned out it was a young man, a high school age young man, and comments included things such as, where else is he going to get the money to buy the cool clothes and the personal electronics and things that he needs? Just because he was breaking into places doesn't mean that he should have been shot. And, whatever we think about the value of life versus the value of goods, we need to realize that there are people out there that believe that they have the right to anything they can take. And in many cases, they're not concerned about whether they harm you physically along the way as well.
I was going to say that's a perspective that when somebody comes into your home, do you trust that they're only there for your belongings? Do you want to take that chance that they're only there for your belongings and that they're not going to harm you or your family?
Exactly.
That's a decision that you've got to make, and that's part of your home defense strategy, is understanding what is the mindset that you're going to take in that, and that's where coming prepared. That's where understanding what you're willing to do in that situation. Like we talked about last week, we talked about what you're going to do, what your plan is for home security and your home defense. Is you're not trying to actively engage, but at the same point, you have to make sure that your family and your people are safe.
Absolutely. We stress tactics, we stress the plan, and part of the plan is having the tools. And in an ideal situation, if you get early enough warning and are able to get all of your people in a safe place, behind you, so to speak, you may have the opportunity to give a verbal challenge or let someone know that if they continue to pursue what they're doing, if they don't leave the house, you'll use force. But you don't always have that option, and you need to understand in advance what your capabilities are, what tools you have, what knowledge you have, what skills you have to deal with those kind of problems.
Yep, that's where you've got to be, and that's where all four of those stories that you've talked about today are people that use their firearms to defend themselves. Not all of them had to shoot, but they verbally challenged. They protected themselves in those situations, and, a couple of them did have to shoot. Nobody ended up passing away due to the shootings, which was fortunate in the incident, but, they were prepared to do what was needed for themselves.
Absolutely.
We're going to take a short break here, and when we return, we're going to jump right into personal security while traveling. You're listening to Thinking Tactically on Fox Sports 1380.
You're listening to Thinking Tactically, personal security for today's world. Brought to you in part by West Coast Armory North, providing expert personalized service to each individual client. For more information, log on to westcoastarmorynorth.com.
It's Glock Day at West Coast Armory North this Wednesday, April 20th, all day. Check out our wide selection of Glock pistols, meet our Glock factory representatives, and enter our drawing to win a free Glock. Why Glock? They are safe, simple, and extremely reliable. They are the #1 choice of law enforcement, military, and competitive shooters worldwide. They are accurate, durable, and user-friendly. And last but not least, Glock manufactures a diverse lineup of pistols, allowing you to choose the features that best fit your intended use. And West Coast Armory North has several Glock armorers and certified expert sales staff to help you choose the perfect Glock pistol for your needs. We will even have a factory representative here from noon until 6, and he will be conducting free inspections and repairs on all Glock pistols. All Glock accessories will be on sale, and if you purchase a Glock pistol, you will receive a free gift. Check out all the details at westcoastarmorynorth.com or West Coast Armory North's Facebook page. West Coast Armory North has a best price guarantee on firearms, so you know you'll get the best price for your new Glock. See you Wednesday for Glock Day.
Insight's Training Center is locally owned and nationally recognized and offers the most complete self-defense, firearms, and tactical training available to civilians and private organizations, law enforcement, and military. In business for over 20 years, they've taught more than 20,000 private citizens, law enforcement officers, instructors, SWAT teams, corrections personnel, security officers, and military personnel, offering classes from basic self-defense and handgun safety to advanced tactic classes and everything in between. Insight's Training Center has a course for you. Their professional instructors come from highly specialized and thorough backgrounds in law enforcement, military special operations, and the private sector. Visit insightstraining.com for a complete list of upcoming classes.
The Northwest Women's Shooting Network is a comprehensive resource in person and online for all women's shooting needs and questions. Everything from basic education to continuing education, we are here to help you find and buy the right gun for you, get the proper skills for personal protection, and to create a welcome and safe environment to learn with other women. Coming from over 30 years of combined experience in the shooting industry, we are mothers, sisters, wives, and just plain awesome gals. In other words, just like you. Our commitment is to help you become an informed, skilled, confident woman. We are based out of West Coast Armory North in Everett, Washington, minutes north of Seattle. We offer a variety of events, seminars, training, and more. Already we have hosted a variety of events such as Kids Safety Day, Ladies Night Out, and shopping events. And we also hold regular women-only classes in addition to our Ladies Shooting Club and Ladies League. At the range, we have over 70 rental firearms for you to try before you buy, and every Thursday is Ladies Day. Find us at westcoastarmorynorth.com under the Women's Network tab and on Facebook at Northwest Women's Shooting Network.
Taking responsibility out of someone else's hands and putting it into yours. This is Thinking Tactically, personal security for today's world. And now, back to more of the show. Here are your hosts, John Holshin and Kevin Smith.
Welcome back to Thinking Tactically, personal security for today's world. We're now going to be talking about personal security while traveling. So, John, I know you've got some tips for our listeners.
Yeah, this is all information that I extract from seminars and work that I do for companies and private citizens that are traveling, whether it's within the United States or definitely we start talking about international travel. But a consistent theme if you're traveling for pleasure, a vacation type thing is people want to relax, people want to be thinking about just letting go of all their cares and concerns. Unfortunately, if you go to any place that is known as a tourist destination, there are bad people there, just like anywhere else. And in many cases, they count on the fact that these travelers are not alert and are just there to have a good time and don't want to think about personal security issues.
Pickpockets and travel destinations are one of the biggest things out there.
Absolutely.
Rome's got like the worst problem of it when you go on their subway system. They got teams where one person unzips, then another waits, and then another person as they go by pulls
unzips
out
a purse or a bag, and then as you walk on down,
it's
if you didn't notice that if they got away with unzipping your purse or your backpack and you didn't feel it, now you walk on down and further down the hall or further down the sidewalk, sidewalk, there's somebody else that's going to dip in there and pull something out. And it may happen 2 or 3 more times as you walk down the sidewalk or even inside the train station, subway station, that sort of thing.
Yeah, I know my dad had one when he was on subways in Rome where it was a jacket breast pocket that was a zipper that he actually found had been unzipped after he'd bumped into someone.
Right.
And he fortunately had caught it before someone had taken the wallet out of it.
Yeah, absolutely. And on that topic, some of the teams that work together are really incredible. I've seen myself in videos of teams of women, including moms with babies, grandmas. One in Italy, actually, you mentioned was interesting, were 2 gentlemen, stereotypical grandfatherly-looking gentlemen, in their late 60s, early 70s, that were actually a pickpocket team, and just incredible.
They've probably been doing it for 40 years, too.
Quite possibly, yeah. So when I think about personal security for traveling, of course, we start before you ever depart, and you want to think about things that you do to leave your home in good condition, of course, for your absence. So, things like making sure that you're not going to have your mail pile up if you're gone very long, or other deliveries, newspapers, that sort of thing. Just making sure that the home stays looking lived in while you're gone. Depending upon, again, how long you're going to be gone, you might have to think about getting somebody to cut your grass, or some climates, snow removal, that sort of thing. I want to leave shades and blinds in their normal position. If normally they're open, you don't want to close it all up tight. I like to use electronic timers, not just on lights, but on a radio or television, something that makes some sound also. So again, just anything I can think of that maintains that appearance that somebody's home. Of course, before we leave, we want to think about the physical security as well. And actually physical security, just not the security side, but if you live in a really hot environment, make sure your air conditioner is going to stay on so that your plants don't wilt and your candles don't melt. And if it's wintertime, that your pipes aren't going to freeze, that you've got your heat on.
Yep. No, you definitely want to make sure that when you're leaving your home, that you're leaving it in a state that's not going to come back to tragedy.
Yeah, exactly. Also, I always make a pass through and make sure that all the windows are locked. Sometimes you open a window for ventilation and don't remember to lock it, or it may have been left unlocked for a period of time and you don't even realize it till you make a check. So I go through and make sure all the doors and windows are locked. And if I have an alarm system, obviously set that. Nowadays, there's just all kinds of great systems that'll send notifications to your phone and all kinds of things. But that's a topic for another show.
Well, and when you come back to your home, also check your windows. I know we came back from a trip to Alaska and found that our screen was gone. Someone had stolen the downstairs screen. We think it was actually a neighbor decided that they didn't want to fix theirs that had a hole cut in it, and because we found a torn one on the other side of the fence, and it didn't. The place that it had been cut didn't make any sense to where it would have been necessary to cut it to get the screen out.
House, right.
But yeah, we found that out when our indoor cats somehow ended up in the backyard because my wife had opened the window and didn't check, and they popped right outside.
Absolutely. So other things I think about, again, generic travel, whether it's within the United States or overseas. I think about what I'm taking with me and what I'm leaving behind. We like to, show off maybe our jewelry and our expensive watches, that sort of thing. But, is that really smart? Does it really make sense? Or maybe I don't need to carry as expensive personal jewelry and that sort of thing with me when I travel. Definitely when I travel overseas, I think about that. Go through your purse or your wallet, get rid of extra credit cards that you don't plan to use, extra IDs. Just kind of look through there and think, okay, what do I need for this trip? And if this got lost or stolen, what would be the downsides here? So get rid of that extra stuff. I leave a trusted person a copy of my itinerary if I'm traveling overseas. So basically, I leave them a packet. And these days, you can do that physically, or you can use electronic means like Dropbox. and make scanned copies of your itinerary, your passport, your visa, any other legal documents, insurance policies. If you've got travel insurance, you want to leave that information with somebody that you know and trust. If something happens to you, that they can access it, or if you lose everything one way or another. It can be theft, it can be natural disaster, there can be a fire where you're staying and you have to run out of your hotel room. All kinds of things can happen. So
you can just leave your luggage.
Yeah, exactly. I like to back all that stuff up. What to take with me? Obviously, the things like any medications you need, you want to take extras of. If you're traveling internationally with medications, you are better off if they are in their original bottles or containers that have the prescription information on it. It's not very common, but every once in a while you can run into issues going through customs or immigration in a foreign country with medications that have been repackaged, and it gives them an excuse, if nothing else, to take a second look at you and hold you up. So I try not to give them that opportunity.
And nobody likes staying in those security lines any longer than they have to.
Yeah, exactly. We used to talk about traveler's checks, but nowadays with all the electronic means, ATMs, credit cards, debit cards, and that sort of thing, traveler's checks are not nearly as common. And in much of the world, they've gotten to where they really don't necessarily recognize them, or you'll have problems cashing them.
I was going to say, at basically 30 years old, I have never used a traveler's check, and I wouldn't even know about how to get one.
Yeah, absolutely. On that note, though, money, one of the things you definitely want to do, and not just for overseas travel, let your bank know that you're going to be traveling. The banks have very sophisticated computerized algorithms these days to catch credit card fraud. So, as an example, my wife traveled to Canada one particular trip last year, and she ended up having 2 credit cards compromised within a 24-hour period. But the first thing we knew about it was when we were contacted by the bank saying, hey, we just want to confirm these recent charges. So she's in Canada. She's got a $1,500 charge for a auto repair in Las Vegas. She's got $1,800 worth of electronics purchased in New York, a plane ticket to Africa purchased in New York, and something else somewhere else in the country, all within a 24-hour period. So the issue here is if you're traveling and your bank can't reach you, or you can't respond, they're going to shut your cards down. So if you are dependent upon this card for your travel expenses and now it's been shut down, that can really put a crimp in your travel plans. So make sure.
Happened to us on our honeymoon. My wife and
really?
I, because we did not notify our credit card company that we were going to be in Mexico, and we had purchased an excursion type of cost through it using our credit card, and when they called to confirm that that was us, we were not able to answer because we didn't have service in where we were at, and they shut it down. So fortunately we had a second card that we could use for our costs when we were there at the end of the trip, but it was definitely a not fun experience when you go to pay the bill at the end and the credit card comes back saying denied.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that'll save you a lot of trouble. Other things I like to do before I leave is I like to do as much research about where I'm going as possible to include, I want an understanding of the physical layout, I want to look at maps, online maps, and know that when I leave the airport, what the route should be to my next destination, whether that's a hotel or whatever the case may be, particularly if you're using taxis. Taxi drivers in some places can be pretty unscrupulous with taking you the longest way around to get to places to boost that charge and that sort of thing. And I've just even flying to, I used to do a lot of work in Washington, D.C., and I've had that happen a few times between the airport and the hotel. They start asking you where you're from. You tell them. They say, oh, have you visited here much? No, not really. And the next thing you know, they're taking you this roundabout
It takes
route.
40 miles to get 10.
Exactly. So, I try and look into that and know what's up. As far as that goes, also just kind of judgments of, in your home turf, you kind of know if there's bad parts of town. Where the areas are that you really would rather avoid, not be at certain times and that sort of thing. And you're not going to know that about these locations you're traveling to. But sometimes you can kind of figure it out, a combination of looking at the maps, using the Google Street View in the mapping program. And, depending upon how long you're going to be there and what you're going to be doing, you can do more or less research along those lines. Air travel, a lot of folks consider inside the airport, once you're inside the security zone, to be a relatively safe location. But in fact, there are folks that make their living pickpocketing and stealing computers and that sort of things inside the airport, inside the secure zone of the airport, particularly in Europe where there are a lot of commuters that are traveling around. You've got people that go to work every day, taking commuter flights between 2 or 3 different cities and stealing everything they can along the way. So stay alert when you're traveling as well.
Yeah, definitely. It's something to take into mind anytime you're traveling, anytime you're making those plans. Make sure that you're following the steps of making sure your home's going to be taken care of when you're gone, making sure that there's people that know where you're going, have some access to some of your documents that you trust in case something does happen, whether it's intentionally as a theft or as a natural disaster. Anything can happen on your trip, so make sure you're prepared there. And when you're traveling, make sure that you're aware of your surroundings, make sure you're aware of where your personal belongings are at all times, and take care of yourself while you're out there.
So there's a lot of resources you can tap into, particularly if you're looking at overseas travel. There's travel websites, destination websites. The U.S. government has a couple of things I want to bring to your attention. One is called the STEP program, the Smart Traveler Enrollment Program through the U.S. Department of State. And that's something that you go online, you register your trip, and you can give them as much or as little detail as you want, but at the minimum you want to tell them what cities you're going to be in on what dates if you're traveling. And what this does, and they'll ask for your passport number and that sort of thing, of course. What this does is if there's a natural disaster, if there's some other large type of event that comes up, it allows the Department of State to know who they're looking for, how many Americans are in the area, if they're arranging transportation out of the area, if they're arranging a secure zone in the embassy or consulate for Americans to come in and stay until they can get transportation out of the area, that sort of thing. It gives them an idea of how many folks they're looking at and who you are and what your contact information is. So it's just kind of a way of having your trip registered. If you're traveling overseas for business, the U.S. Department of State has a service or a department called the Overseas Security Advisory Council, or OSAC, O-S-A-C. And that's something that your company has to sign up for, and then it gets you access to some really great material, both updated security bulletins and issues, as well as just a lot of great reference material about living and working overseas.
All right, we're going to take a short break, and when we return, we're going to be talking about traveling with a firearm, in particular on an airplane. So stay with us. You are listening to Thinking Tactically on Fox Sports 1380.
You're listening to Thinking Tactically, personal security for today's world. Brought to you in part by Insights Training Center, offering the most complete self-defense, firearms, and tactical training available to citizens, private organizations, law enforcement, and military. Online at insightstraining.com.
Every day, there are men and women of our armed forces dealing with illness and injuries, and their families are unable to be by their side. Fisher House works to get the families of injured military members to their soldiers during these difficult times. They provide housing and transportation to help make certain our soldiers are not alone. Visit fisherhouse.org to see how you can make a difference in the lives of the brave men and women of our armed forces that have sacrificed so much for us. Those of us at Thinking Tactically and West Coast Armory North are proud to support Fisher House.
The Northwest Women's Shooting Network is a comprehensive resource in person and online for all women's shooting needs and questions. Everything from basic education to continuing education, we're here to help you find and buy the right gun for you, get the proper skills for personal protection, and to create a welcome and safe environment to learn with other women. Coming from over 30 years of combined experience in the shooting industry, we are mothers, sisters, wives, and just plain awesome gals. In other words, just like you. Our commitment is to help you become an informed, skilled, confident woman. We are based out of West Coast Armory North in in Everett, Washington, minutes north of Seattle. We offer a variety of events, seminars, training, and more. Already we have hosted a variety of events such as Kids Safety Day, Ladies Night Out, and shopping events. And we also hold regular women-only classes in addition to our Ladies Shooting Club and Ladies League. At the range, we have over 70 rental firearms for you to try before you buy, and every Thursday is Ladies Day. Find us at westcoastarmorynorth.com under the Women's Network tab and on Facebook at Northwest Women Shooting Network.
It's Glock Day at West Coast Armory North this Wednesday, April 20th, all day. Check out our wide selection of Glock pistols, meet our Glock factory representatives, and enter our drawing to win a free Glock. Why Glock? They are safe, simple, and extremely reliable. They are the #1 choice of law enforcement, military, and competitive shooters worldwide. They are accurate, durable, and user-friendly. And last but not least, Glock manufactures a diverse lineup of pistols, allowing you to choose the features that best fit your intended use. And West Coast Armory North has several Glock armorers and certified experts sales staff to help you choose the perfect Glock pistol for your needs. We will even have a factory representative here from noon until 6, and he will be conducting free inspections and repairs on all Glock pistols. All Glock accessories will be on sale, and if you purchase a Glock pistol, you will receive a free gift. Check out all the details at westcoastarmorynorth.com or West Coast Armory North's Facebook page. West Coast Armory North has a best price guarantee on firearms, so you know you'll get the best price for your new Glock. See you Wednesday for Glock Day.
Welcome back to the radio show dedicated to information and education about defending yourself.
Thinking tactically, personal security for today's world.
Once again, here are your hosts, John Holshin and Kevin Smith.
Welcome back to Thinking Tactically, Personal Security for Today's World. We're now going to be talking about some safety tips with regards to flying with handguns and ammunition. I know that's a subject that it's really confusing to a lot of people. Can they travel with a firearm on a plane? What can you and can't you do? And John's got some great insights, so...
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, I travel a lot with firearms. I teach firearms and tactics all over the country, and have taught in a number of foreign countries as well. So this is something that I do a lot, and have seen a lot of variability on. The actual laws in the United States are really quite clear. You absolutely can have a firearm in your checked baggage. Like anything else, it has to be legal in the place you're starting and legal in the place you're ending up. And that can cause problems sometimes. I know people that have been rerouted through some place like New York State. And, well, I'll come back to that here in just a moment. So to start with, what I need to know is that the firearm has to be, number one, unloaded. That should be relatively obvious. But it bears stating it needs to be unloaded, and it needs to be inside of a locked, hard case. That could be your luggage, if your luggage is hard-sided luggage. It doesn't have to be in a separate case, just in a locked, hard case. Or if, like myself, typically I have soft-sided luggage, then the gun will be inside a gun case that's locked in that case. And the luggage can be locked or not locked. It really, there's really no requirement there. So I'm required to declare the firearm, and typically what I do is I walk up to the ticket counter, and you are going to have to use the ticket counter for your luggage. You're not going to be able to do a curbside check-in or that sort of thing. And I start the process just as I normally would. And right before we get to the luggage part of the process, I simply tell the ticket agent I need a firearms declaration tag for checked baggage. At that point, they'll hand you a small tag, typically about a 3x5 card size, and they're usually some bright color, bright orange, but the individual airlines make those up themselves per the federal guidelines. And basically, if you read that, it says that you are declaring that you're the owner of this firearm and that the firearm is unloaded. And then there's a section for the ticket agent to write the flight number that you're on and their name on there as well. Now, what happens with that tag varies, believe it or not, from airport to airport, because the federal guidance is kind of rather broad. There are airports that will tell you that tag must be inside the locked hard case so that it can't get separated from the locked hard case should your luggage break open or whatever. It will be there. There are other airports that will tell you that the tag cannot be inside the locked hard case. It must be external to it, so a security person looking in your bag can see the tag and know that in fact you filled out a tag. This varies for a number of different reasons. The one thing that a lot of folks don't realize is that the TSA people in some airports actually aren't TSA employees. They're actually contract employees. And that varies from airport to airport. They're following federal guidance, but again, sometimes it's not real specific. So the bottom line is, what I've learned, it doesn't pay to argue with the ticket agent or the person that's having you fill it out. Simply, I go whichever route they say. Now, I like to use a metal box that it's locked into, and one of the things I have is a large flat magnet, about a 2x2-inch magnet. And if they tell me that the firearms declaration tag has to be outside, I simply use the magnet to affix it to the outside of the metal case so that at least it's not going to get separated from it.
Yeah. When you're traveling with a firearm, obviously that means that no carry-on only.
Exactly. No carry-on only. It's going to be in checked baggage. What about ammunition? If you're traveling with a self-defense firearm, you're not going to want to go looking for ammo when you get to where you're going. So it's nice to know that by federal law, you can check up to 11 pounds of ammunition in your checked baggage. That ammunition needs to be in original packaging or other packaging designed for the transportation of ammunition. Safest thing, easiest thing to do is just keep it in the original packaging. I save a couple of boxes that work well, have good packing inside them for just that purpose. Now, something else to realize is that these are the federal laws. The individual airlines can have individual airline rules or regulations that are more restrictive than these laws. And in fact, a number of the airlines, their limit for ammo is actually 6 pounds of ammunition. Again, far more than you are going to need with a self-defense handgun. But just if you're traveling to attend a class or teach a class like I do, sometimes that does become a limiting factor.
Definitely you need to be looking up ahead of time what the airline's regulations are if you're traveling with a lot of ammunition so that you don't get stuck in a point where you don't get to bring it all.
Yeah. I like I say, I travel a lot, and simply having, a box of 50 rounds usually is more than what I'm looking for what I feel I need for self-defense needs. So simply traveling with a box of ammo and a couple of unloaded magazines and the firearm secured in a hard lock case covers all the bases.
So, John, you'd mentioned that there were some other concerns with traveling with a firearm, with maybe some destination stuff.
Sure. So, again, federal law tries to ensure that we have free passage within the states of the United States. And basically what the federal law says is that for the most part, if what you have is a legal thing federally, and it's legal where you're starting and where you're ending up, then you're legal to have it in between. Some exceptions you can run into, though, that can be really a problem. For example, right now in the state of New York, it is impossible for anyone who is not a resident of the state of New York to be legally in possession of a handgun within the state. This has come into play in a couple cases where flights have been diverted, or a flight through New York City, for example, was delayed to the point that the person needed to find a hotel room overnight and took their luggage with them. So now they take their luggage out, and the next day they come back to the airport. They need to declare the firearm again. And the local policies are that whenever someone declares a firearm, they call a police officer to come examine the state paperwork for that firearm. And the traveler, of course, doesn't have state paperwork for a firearm in New York State, not being a resident. And that leads to confiscation of the firearm and arrest. So the lesson learned there is, if I am stuck unexpectedly in a location that I don't know if I'm legal to have that firearm or not, I do not take my luggage out of the airport. I tell them, nope, you need to hold my luggage for me. And I know that can be inconvenient, but it's less inconvenient than losing your firearms and being arrested for being in possession of a firearm illegally.
Definitely. It's definitely better. You can buy a T-shirt, pair of pants, and some underwear a lot cheaper than you can buy a new and get arrested.
Yeah, and deal with the legal
Yeah.
issues that arise. So actually, hopefully I didn't give you the idea that traveling with a firearm should be something that you worry about. It's something that, again, I travel a lot, over 100,000 miles a year, many years, with a firearm on airplanes. So it's absolutely doable. It does not have to be a difficult or a painful thing to do. It's just you need to know in advance, what those limitations are. Make sure you have a hard case, a way to lock the hard case. It doesn't have to be a TSA lock on it. They'll have you open it when they need you to do so and then lock it up. But you have to have that hard case, the ability to lock that hard case. All your ammo has to be, again, in original packaging or something designed to hold it. Then you declare it and pretty much do what they tell you to do, and it works just fine.
All right, sounds good. We're going to take a short break here, and when we return, we're going to be joined in studios by Insights instructor Alan Hines to talk about conceal carry and how that applies to travel. So stay with us. You're listening to Thinking Tactically on Fox Sports 1380.
You're listening to Thinking Tactically, personal security for today's world.
Brought to you in part by West Coast Armory North, providing expert personalized service to each individual client. For more information, log on to westcoastarmorynorth.com. Insights Training Center is locally owned and nationally recognized and offers the most complete self-defense, firearms, and tactical training available to civilians and private organizations, law enforcement, and military. In business for over 20 years, they've taught more than 20,000 private citizens, law enforcement officers, instructors, SWAT teams, corrections personnel, security officers, and military personnel, offering classes from basic self-defense and handgun safety to advanced tactic classes and everything in between. Insights Training Center has a course for you. Their professional instructors come from highly specialized and thorough backgrounds in law enforcement, military special operations, and the private sector. Visit InsightsTraining.com for a complete list of upcoming classes.
It's Glock Day at West Coast Armory North this Wednesday, April 20th, all day. Check out our wide selection of Glock pistols, meet our Glock factory representatives, and enter our drawing to win a free Glock. Why Glock? They are safe, simple, and extremely reliable. They are the #1 choice of law enforcement, military, and competitive shooters worldwide. They are accurate, durable, and user-friendly. And last but not least, Glock manufactures a diverse lineup of pistols, allowing you to choose the features that best fit your intended use. And West Coast Armory North has several Glock armorers and certified expert sales staff to help you choose the perfect Glock pistol for your needs. We will even have a factory representative here from noon until 6, and he will be conducting free inspections and repairs on all Glock pistols. All Glock accessories will be on sale, and if you purchase a Glock pistol, you will receive a free gift. Check out all the details at westcoastarmorynorth.com or West Coast Armory North's Facebook page. West Coast Armory North has a best price guarantee on firearms, so you know you'll get the best price for your new Glock. See you Wednesday for Glock Day.
The Northwest Women's Shooting Network is a comprehensive resource in person and online for all women's shooting needs and questions. Everything from basic education to continuing education, we are here to help you find and buy the right gun for you, get the proper skills for personal protection, and to create a welcome and safe environment to learn with other women. Coming from over 30 years of combined experience in the shooting industry, we are mothers, sisters, wives, and just plain awesome gals. In other words, just like you. Our commitment is to help you become an informed, skilled, confident woman. We are based out of West Coast Armory North in Everett, Washington, minutes north of Seattle. We offer a variety of events, seminars, training, and more. Already we have hosted a variety of events such as Kids Safety Day, Ladies Night Out, and shopping events. And we also hold regular women-only classes in addition to our Ladies Shooting Club and Ladies League. At the range, we have over 70 rental firearms for you to try before you buy, and every Thursday is Ladies Day. Find us at westcoastarmorynorth.com under the Women's Network tab and on Facebook at Northwest Women's Shooting Network.
You're listening to Thinking Tactically,
Personal security for today's world.
heard every Saturday morning at 9 a.m. on Fox Sports 1380. Once again, here are your hosts, John Holshin and Kevin Smith.
Welcome back to the show. We are now joined in studio by Alan Hines, an instructor with Insights Training Center. Welcome to the show.
Great. Thanks for having me.
Why don't you tell us a little bit of your background, Alan?
Well, I've been teaching handgun safety and concealed carry classes for Insights Training for almost 11 years now. Started training with them back in 2001. Basically just stumbled on them by complete sheer luck. Didn't know there was such an awesome little company in our own backyard. They're nationally, even internationally recognized as self-defense, firearms, and tactics trainers.
Awesome.
So, Alan, we're talking about travel today and personal security while travel. And I thought of you when I thought about wanting to talk to people and educate people about what their options are if they want to consider carrying a concealed weapon when they travel out of state.
Well, there's kind of three big concerns. One is if you get a concealed pistol license, other states do not honor it like your driver's license. And number two, each state gets to make their own concealed carry laws. And number three, each state gets to change those laws whenever they want to. So for number one, currently there are 5 states in the United States that don't even require you to have a permit to carry a concealed pistol. So hey, there you are, 5 states out of 50. If you want to carry in other states, there are more permitting processes, and they're different for every state. Like for here in Washington, for example, if you want to carry a concealed pistol outside of your home or business, you have to get a Washington state concealed pistol license. But the good news with there is you get 21 other states that recognize that. So
Wow, 21.
Yeah, so between Washington and the so-called constitutional carry states, you're already up to 27.
How can I find out which states honor or recognize my Washington permit?
Yeah, it's kind of a patchwork. I mean, probably the first place to go is a website called usacarry.com. That's basically a concealed carry database. You can pull up maps that should tell you with reasonable accuracy what states recognize your permit. Of course, in any event, I mean, the ultimate reference is going to be the individual states you're going to, because their attorney general or concealed carry pages will tell you specifically which states they do and don't recognize.
Okay, so I start looking at USA Concealed Carry, and there's a map there, I understand, that'll tell me which states honor my Washington state. And from there, you said the state attorney general's website, is that?
Yeah, I mean, the usacarry.com website will give you links to the specific state information pages, right? Because that's always going to be the ultimate reference.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Okay. And what about understanding how their laws may differ? And in fact, do they differ greatly? Is it something I'm going to accidentally run into if I don't do that kind of research?
Yeah, that was kind of my number 2 point there, is every state gets to make their own laws, and of course they're all usually a little bit different. Like for example, with guns and alcohol, of course, do not mix. But here in Washington state, you are not allowed to carry a pistol in a bar or tavern, basically any establishment off limits to people under 21. Now other states, like for example Utah, you can carry a gun in a bar, but you cannot get legally drunk and carry a gun. And every state's going to have their own little flavor of laws like that, places you can and can't carry. And guess what? You, as the carrier, must know those laws wherever you go. You have to stay up to date on what each little local twist is.
So I know here in Washington, if I go into a restaurant that has a separate bar from the restaurant, that's fine as long as I'm in the restaurant area.
Yeah, exactly. You go into a restaurant that has like a family seating area with all the booths and tables and a specific bar area. Yeah, you really have to pay attention to signage and, lines painted on the ground and all that kind of stuff. Because if you go into the bar with a pistol, you're breaking the law.
But I understand in some states I can't even go into a restaurant that serves, wine with dinner or whatever. If they serve alcohol at all in the whole establishment, you can't go in with your concealed weapon. Is that, have you run into that?
Yeah, exactly. I believe it's is it North Carolina or Virginia even, where, I believe it's Virginia, where, sure enough, you cannot carry a gun in in a restaurant that serves alcohol for consumption on the premises. So that's not just bars, but, the little Italian restaurant down the street. And whatever those little local tweaks are, the takeaway is self-defense law, first of all, requires you to lawfully be wherever you are when you're going to use force in self-defense. And if you are carrying a gun in a place you're not allowed to carry a gun and you end up having to use it, well, guess what? You are actually not technically able to claim self-defense because you were unlawfully there with your gun. So you have to keep track of all these different little local twists and modify your flight plan accordingly.
So that was, so first was we need to know if we're legal or not. Second was how the laws are different. What was the third thing you mentioned I need to think about?
Yeah, each state is going to change those on a whim, it sometimes seems. I believe it was late last year, early this year, the governor of Virginia suddenly decided, hey, we're going to stop recognizing pretty much everyone else's concealed carry permits. And then a month or two later, well, just kidding, everyone. We're actually going to go back to what we were doing before. All right, so these laws, they're not fixed, right? Even that usacarry.com site, it's reasonably up to date, but, expect there might be sometimes a multiple, like 2 or 3 month lag between when they update it with the most recent stuff. Kind of the short answer, I guess, for you carrying across the United States is you need to look at the states you want to go to, first of all, then figure out, can you even carry there? What permits are required for you to do that? And then when you go there, you have to know the laws ahead of time. And there's, like I said, there's various resources. USA Carry is a good place to start.
Great. So you mentioned various permits. Are there other options as well?
Yeah, the way it works is, like say for here in Washington State, you start with your Washington concealed pistol license. That already, like I say, gets you 27 states. Then there are a few other states that are real popular as non-resident permits, and they all have their own little sets of reciprocity and recognition. The main difference there being is that Washington State does not require you to have any special training to carry a concealed firearm. But other states, like, for example, Utah, to get a Utah permit, you do have to take a class. So it's one thing we do at Insights Training Center is teach what we call a multi-state concealed carry permit class because while the primary goal is to get you your Utah permit, that class also fulfills the training requirement for Oregon and Florida and Arizona, right? And if you tack on Utah to your Washington permit, that gets you up to 32 states. If you decide you don't want Utah and you get Arizona, that gets you up to 34 states. So and they're all a little bit different in what states they get and don't get.
Oh, I see. So different reciprocity agreements with the different states get you into different places. So it sounds like I need to look at where I'm going to travel and check and see if my Washington permit is accepted there. And if not, look at what other permits. Boy, this sounds pretty complex and confusing. You mentioned USA Carry. Is there anything there that will help with this process of figuring out what's honored where?
Yeah, their maps are pretty clear there. There's basically two versions. One where you click on the states you have a permit for, and then it'll show you what states you can carry in. Then the other half of it is you click on a state you want to go to, and that will show you what permits that state recognizes. So yeah, it's kind of a way to winnow out and then of course realize that there's going to be states you just cannot legally carry a gun concealed in, like say California. You are not going to be able to get a non-resident permit because they do not exist.
I see. Okay. What about our neighboring states? You mentioned Oregon.
Yeah. So Oregon, they're their own little island. They do not recognize anyone else's permits, but you can get an Oregon non-resident permit. So like I say, it's one of the side effects of that Utah class we do, or I should say a multi-state class, is we give you a training certificate you can photocopy for other states like Oregon that require training. Right, but it's a whole separate permit process. You have to have 2 personal references who are not related to you. You have to show them photocopies of your other permits. You have to have legitimate demonstrated need to carry in Oregon. All right, it just goes on and on. They fingerprint you, photocopy, all that good stuff. And
that sounds pretty daunting. Is it even realistically possible?
Oh yeah, it's possible. You have to jump through a few hoops, but that's just kind of the way it is if you want to have a firearm for self-defense when you travel. And a lot of it's kind of upfront effort. Right? I mean, these permits are good for 4, sometimes 5 years. So just realize it's kind of an ongoing maintenance issue, if anything, with some upfront hassle.
Gotcha. How about, are you familiar with Idaho at all? That's another neighboring state.
Yep, Idaho, they recognize your Washington permit. So they're good to go if you want to just travel to Idaho. But yeah, you start getting into other states, you have to start tacking on some of these other permits. Like say with your Washington permit, you can't really drive from coast to coast because there's some big gaps in the Midwest and so forth that are really hard to bridge, which is right. It's nice to have things like the Utah permit to help bridge those gaps.
Absolutely. All right. Well, that's neat. That's neat that I guess number one, some folks, like you say, might start from the idea just, well, I have a license. Isn't it like a driver's license? Doesn't it work everywhere?
I wish.
Yeah. But so it's not that simple, but there are some options that if we know we're going to travel, that makes sense, would give us that option, that possibility to carry concealed.
Yeah, and it really boils down to look at the states you want to go to and then start building your list from there. Because, last time I sat down and calculated it, my eyeballs were spinning like little pinwheels by the time I was done. And I figured by the time you get something like 7 permits, that still only gets you 39 states. And beyond that, you just can't carry in some places. So I mean, my own personal strategy is what I call concealed carry tourism. If they don't let me to carry my gun, I'm going to be reluctant to spend money in your state.
There you go. Absolutely. Unfortunately, business sometimes takes us into... I teach around the country, and I ran into this, and some states, as you say, are almost starting to get to the point, do I remove them from my schedule of teaching because it's gotten so restrictive to even be in possession of a firearm, let alone carry concealed. New York State comes to mind.
Yeah.
Not to mention Hawaii. Yeah, absolutely. Well, Alan, thanks a bunch. That hopefully that clarifies and gives people some resources, some places where they can go to get some more information. And it sounds like, tell us more about Insights, that multi-state class you mentioned with Insights. How long is that?
Yeah, so it's about 4.5 hours. That takes care of the state-mandated training, plus we fingerprint you, we photograph you, we photocopy all the required documents, we get you an envelope all ready to go. We do those classes here at West Coast Armory North at least once a month, sometimes 2 or 3 times a month, weekdays, weekends, morning, noon, and night. They're almost around the clock for you. But yeah, check out insightstraining.com. That's INSIGHTS training.com, and look for the multi-state concealed firearm permit class. That's a good starting place, right? Plus, I also like to think of it as a good inventory of your gun knowledge, right? If you hear something in that class that you didn't know or that contradicts something you know, use that as a springboard for more training, right? If it confirms everything you knew, then, well, heck, I guess you're already on your way, but you could always still use some more training. So, but yeah, that class is a good kind of catch-all of a whole lot of gun information and self-defense information, plus some of the legalities as well.
Well, thank you, Alan, for joining us today and helping us get an understanding of where you can and can't carry and what the process should be to make sure that you're taking the right steps to make sure you're legally carrying when you do travel.
You bet. My pleasure.
Thank you for joining us this week. We've had the opportunity to talk about safety tips for when you travel, carrying firearms with you when you do travel, and also conceal carry, amongst other topics. Remember that you can always email us questions, and we will get to them next week at thinkingtactically@gmail.com, or check us out on Facebook at the West Coast Armory North tab or westcoastarmorynorth.com for their website. They're also located in South Everett, so stop on by at any time. They're open Tuesday through Sunday, 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. Join us next week as we talk about technology and how it's impacted firearms with sights and other things, as well as the psychology of thinking tactically, amongst other topics. So join us next week right here on Fox Sports 1380 for Thinking Tactically at 9 a.m. Until next week, stay safe.
You're listening to Thinking Tactically, personal security for today's world.
Brought to you in part by Insights Training Center, offering the most complete self-defense, firearms, and tactical training available to citizens, private organizations, law enforcement, and military. Online at insightstraining.com.
Every day, there are men and women of our armed forces dealing with illness and injuries, and their families are unable to be by their side. Fisher House works to get the families of injured military members to their soldiers during these difficult times. They provide housing and transportation to help make certain our soldiers are not alone. Visit fisherhouse.org to see how you can make a difference in the lives of the brave men and women of our armed forces that have sacrificed so much for us. Those of us at Thinking Tactically and West Coast Armory North are proud to support Fisher House.
West Coast Armory North is known for its low prices and great customer service. But did you know we have training classes as well? In fact, we're introducing a new course, Handgun 101, designed with new and returning shooters in mind. Our Handgun 101 course is 3 hours long, covers handgun marksmanship, how to load, unload, and safely handle and fire a variety of handguns. All equipment is provided, and you'll leave with a free bronze membership to our range. All this for just $75. Sign up now on our website under the Classes tab at westcoastarmorynorth.com.
Insights Training Center is locally owned and nationally recognized and offers the most complete self-defense, firearms, and tactical training available to civilians and private organizations, law enforcement, and military. In business for over 20 years, they've taught more than 20,000 private citizens, law enforcement officers, instructors, SWAT teams, corrections personnel, security officers, and military personnel, offering classes from basic self-defense and handgun safety to advanced tactic classes and everything in between. Insights Training Center has a course for you. you. Their professional instructors come from highly specialized and thorough backgrounds in law enforcement, military special operations, and the private sector. Visit InsidesTraining.com for a complete list of upcoming classes.
The Northwest Women's Shooting Network is a comprehensive resource in person and online for all women's shooting needs and questions. Everything from basic education to continuing education, we are here to help you find and buy the right gun for you, get the proper skills for personal protection, and to create a welcome and safe environment to learn with other women. Coming from over 30 years of combined experience in the shooting industry, we are mothers, sisters, wives, and just plain awesome gals. In other words, just like you. Our commitment is to help you become an informed, skilled, confident woman. We are based out of West Coast Armory North in Everett, Washington, minutes north of Seattle. We offer a variety of events, seminars, training, and more. Already we have hosted a variety of events such as Kids Safety Day, Ladies Night Out, and shopping events, and we also hold regular women-only classes in addition to our Ladies Shooting Club and Ladies League. At the range, we have over 70 rental firearms for you to try before you buy, and every Thursday is Ladies Day. Find us at westcoastarmorynorth.com under the Women's Network tab and on Facebook at Northwest Women's Shooting Network.